dear all. Welcome to the next episode of One Step at a Time. In this episode, we have Akash Naidu, who is the founder of the Startuppreneur, an outcome-driven venture builder and startup accelerator. Akash is actually an alumnus of the London School of Economics and a global startup enabler. He's been in charge of one of India's top incubators, which is NSR Cell at IIM Bangalore, and he also led the startup programs for Facebook in India and South Asia before this venture. I've known Akash as a person who's helping Nirman put up an evaluation platform and also a learning module solution, which will be launched very soon. So Akash has been somebody who has been through the startup ecosystem out and out, and he's here to talk to us today about how can you tap the opportunities in the ecosystem for your venture. So as you know, the ecosystem is maturing quite a bit, especially in Bangalore, Chennai, and all the major cities. So yes. I welcome Akash to our Nirman webinar this weekend and thank him for the time. And Akash, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Professor Satya. And also, I would like to say that Nirman is very special. Although our association started sometime last year, I actually visited the Nirman, IIT Madras and Nirman campus like almost 3 or 4 times now. So it's really special to be interacting with the students from Nirman, and also I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to maybe share some of my experiences of being in the startup ecosystem, someone who is working with startups closely as well as with different stakeholders in the startup ecosystem, to kind of share some of the experiences as to how it was earlier and how it has been in the last 4 or 5 months. In fact, 3-4 years ago, we did an event where we spoke about the startup ecosystem in 2020. But the predictions that all of us made on that day were now and today they're completely different. So things are very unexpected, but it also opens up a lot of different opportunities for us. So on that note, I would like to just maybe share a presentation. So the way I would like to do is keep it brief. So my presentation would be for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll leave the last 15-20 minutes for any questions or discussion, because right now I feel that there is a lot of scope for us to engage in a conversation, to discuss, debate, and hear your experiences and challenges. That would be more interesting to maybe come up with some ideas or concepts on how you could tap the ecosystem. So I'll just quickly start with my presentation. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, Akash.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yeah. So quickly. So this is how the startup ecosystem looked like in 2019, and this is how it looks like in 2020. It's quite an unexpected but an interesting change. Things have become more global now. That's like an opportunity. Earlier, most startup programs were very specific and were delivered in the offline mode, but now we see that more and more it's being delivered in the online mode. So this is just a kind of an example as to where things stand. So yeah, it looks like too much of information. Are you able to see all the 8 points here?
Yes, we are able to see.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I would like to discuss about these 8 pillars of startup ecosystem, how they were and how they are today, so that you understand, first of all, like what are the various opportunities available to you in terms of what startup ecosystem has to offer. So I think the first and foremost we need to keep in mind our mentors, advisors, faculty members, who would kind of give us an early shape to the idea that we have. So usually it starts with some sort of an intent as to I want to become an entrepreneur, but how do you really turn that into, say, full-fledged business? I think that's something that happens through conversations with people and experts who understand this space very well. I think to that end, the first ecosystem and an important one that you need to rely on becomes your mentors, advisors, and faculty members, whom you could reach out to and have conversations with regards to your idea, venture, etc. I think post these conversations, what we've seen is colleges offer a great ecosystem when it comes to sharing your ideas and developing them, because a lot of the facilities are available in colleges in terms of the labs and research, research papers, and a lot of active research and development is going on. So I think that becomes a great place to kind of mature your innovation first. Like, I think that's how typically we've seen that in colleges. It starts with an innovation that gets out of a lab or out of an educational institution, which then becomes a full-fledged business idea. So I think that's where I believe that even within IIT Madras itself, there are like a lot of such ecosystems. So I think there's the eCell, and then there is the C5 and Nirman, and then the IIT Madras Incubation this center, so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, there are many other bodies which are promoting entrepreneurship. So I think the way the IIT Madras ecosystem is structured in itself is a good reference for you to understand how the broader ecosystem works. So I think keeping in mind how you could leverage these resources, because you also have your other co-founders that you can work with, and the other team members, early team members. All of that can actually happen at a college ecosystem. So I think it really becomes essential for you to tap into that, and also for you to test out your pilots and projects and all of that. This becomes a great platform. And the next and a very, very important one is that of an incubator. So here I would call an incubator or a pre-incubator. Both are in a similar space where, let us say, you believe that there is an idea or an innovation which needs to translate into business. That is where incubators come into the picture. So this is a step which is called more of a 0 to 1 phase, where your idea is turned into a viable business concept. So I think that's where it's really important to leverage the incubator ecosystem as you are developing your business idea. It's because most we've seen that not necessarily all great inventions are great business ideas, may not be, but great inventions can actually be great business ideas if they follow a certain path, and that path is created by incubators. So in this scenario, typically incubators are housed in academic institutions. IIT Madras, of course, has its pre-incubation program and incubator and so on and so forth. IIM Bangalore has an incubation program. So there they take up startups which are mostly sector agnostic. So they give the business side of training to startups who have an idea, and they help them take it to the next level. So typically incubators also provide some amount of seed funding or funding which will enable the idea to be tested. Incubators also provide access to mentors, advisors, and potential customers. I think that's also a really important benefit that you can leverage out of being in an incubator kind of a setup, because it's really important for you to find your first customers for the product. Only then you're in a position to scale up. So the fundamental change that has occurred when it comes to incubators is that in 2019 or earlier, there was this whole setup called co-working spaces, or a physical space which was really, really important for innovation to happen. I think that paradigm has completely changed, and now people are actually innovating, or the incubation programs are actually going on, but in a virtual mode. So what this would mean is, instead of talks that were happening in person, if all was well, I would have actually been there in Chennai talking to you in person. But the same thing is happening, but now you see that it's happening through a webinar. So I think the medium has changed, but the process is still continuing. So I think that's where you have to take advantage of an incubator to completely translate your idea into a business. And then comes the accelerators. Accelerators, of course, come in at a stage. The accelerator stage is called 1 to 10. basically accelerators happen when, let us say, you have some paying customers, you have say 5 or 10 paying customers, and you want to accelerate or take it to the next level. So how do you grow 10 times in terms of your customers from where you are? So those are the kind of programs that accelerators have. So the duration of an accelerator program is about 100 days. So it lasts anywhere between 3 to 4 months as a program, and you are part of a cohort wherein you're given resources, you're given financial resources. So there is some amount of funding given in order for you to either build your product or acquire your first few employees, or you spend for your marketing expenses. Aside of that, there are intense sessions that you have in terms of say business model planning, your roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months. You have like a very strict program defined at the beginning of the program, so that within these 100 days, what do you expect to achieve? And by the end of an accelerator program, you're more likely to raise an investment. So it becomes a lot easier for you to raise investment post an accelerator program. So here you need to keep that fundamental difference in mind, that incubator programs are of a longer duration. Incubator programs can be anywhere between 6 months to 1 or 2 years, depending on the sector you are in. And accelerator programs can be anywhere between 3 to 6 months at best. So the duration is reduced, but nevertheless, the functions are slightly different. So now when it comes to accelerators, the fundamental difference where it has occurred is in terms of the demo days. So accelerators typically used to have demo days at the end of the 100th day of the program. So what happened was those demo days were held in person. They would bring a lot of investors, customers, media, stakeholders, so that a lot of visibility is given to the startup. But today, these demo days are happening. So most corporates have accelerators. Say Google has an accelerator, Oracle has an accelerator, Target Group has an accelerator, NetApp has an accelerator. So there is an accelerator pretty much for any and every kind of a sector. So when I said incubators are run by academic institutions, accelerators are primarily run by corporates or independent accelerators. So there are global accelerators such as Techstars and Y Combinator, which come in at an early stage, and so they provide some sort of funding and a basic program to help you go to the next level. So I think the focus, again, another difference I would like to bring here is in an incubator program, in an incubation program, the focus or your interaction is very much with mentors and advisors, whereas in an accelerator program, your interaction is with other startups, other founders, and people who have already scaled up. So these are people with the startups which have already raised funding. So it becomes a very realistic program at that point in time. So yeah, I mean, both are equally important, because to get into an accelerator program, you should have ideally gone through an incubator program. Yeah, so I think the demo days is some place where it is happening virtually. So there are accelerators for different sectors, for health tech, even like fintech, edtech. So there are various programs that are pretty much there. So Social Alpha is also one of an accelerator. There is something called as Accelor, which is also an accelerator in India. So even Techstars also has a program in India. So there you can explore all these possibilities as and when you go along. But they also give these benefits. Both incubators and accelerators give you benefits like these cloud credits, AWS credits, then let us say some Zoho kind of credits, and SendGrid mail credits, all of which is really required for you to put together, build your product. So they help you subsidize with a lot of benefits given to these startups. So I think one way and a very good advantage for you in these times is most of these programs have become virtual. So you can pretty much have a good pitch deck or a business plan and actually be part of a program, and you don't necessarily have to be physically present. Earlier, most of these programs used to emphasize that you have to be physically present. So if you could not take up a program in the US or in Bangalore or in Delhi because you were not present there, now you can actually do that. You can leverage that ecosystem by being here, because everything is virtual today. So that's an interesting space that you could look at. At this point, other than incubators and accelerators, there's another space that that is interesting, which is called which are the maker spaces. In case you are a hardware startup and you need to put together product, a vehicle, be it electric vehicle or some IoT product, robotics, all of that. There are a lot of these spaces where you have like 3D printers and you can assemble these products and put it together. However, in this kind of scenario, even that is becoming virtual. So there is one kind of a lab manager or a makerspace manager who's taking your request and using certain designs. They're virtually delivering the products, because instead of you going to a physical space and trying to build a prototype, all of that is now also happening virtually through CAD, CAM, and other sort of designs in order to help you put together a prototype. So yeah, I think let us say once you have some sort of a product or a service which is kind of scaling up, but you need some funding further, that is actually possible. So one way is, if you don't want to go to a VC, you can actually talk to an angel investor. Angel investors are people who are high net worth individuals who usually have a lot of experience, maybe 20-30 years of experience in their in terms of their career, and now they are willing to not only put some money, but also help startups with connections and guidance and giving their time and all of that. So in terms of angel investor networks, there are a lot of interesting angel investor networks. Indian Angel Network is one such angel network where you can pitch. There is something called as Kiretsu Forum, which is also a global angel investor network, wherein you can, let's say, pitch to investors not only from your local chapter. Like, say, there is a Kiretsu Forum in Chennai, there's a Kiretsu Forum in Bangalore, but also there is a lot of chapters across the globe. So you can pitch to investors across the globe. Then there is something called as Let's Venture, also an interesting, is also another angel investor network. However, there are other groups like Chennai Angels and so on and so forth. Nowadays, the definition of angel investor has changed. Earlier, it was high net worth individuals with certain years of experience, but now successful startup founders have also become angel investors. So people who have exited their ventures are now putting their money back into building new startups. So, for example, the Flipkart founder is an angel investor, and then let us say even the Oyo founder is now turning an investor per se, and of course Kunal Shah of Freecharge is also an angel investor. But more importantly, I believe that IIT Madras has its very, very strong network of alumni who are more than willing to support their students and startups from their own alma mater. So I think that's an ecosystem that you could leverage very strongly when it comes to looking at some sort of an early investment into scaling your venture. Now, aside of that, venture capitalists, I think VCs are rather like one of the most, let us say, you call it overrated, or let's say, these are people who are most talked about, because funding is seen as a very, very essential element for startup survival. But that actually got proven wrong in this scenario. It's because startups with excessive funding had actually grown really fast, but they could not sustain that kind of growth when there was lack of demand. As a result, they had to kind of do a lot of job cuts, and even their survival is now being questioned in spite of putting VC money. So I think here it's really, really important to keep in mind that self-reliance or bootstrapping your own venture, where you're relying on funding from the customer directly, that becomes really, really important. Even VCs today look at startups, which actually have paying customers. Even if they have to fund you, you need to have certain revenues before actually raising money. So to that extent, some of the VCs that you could look at are Accel Partners, Sequoia Capital, then there is Bloom Ventures, then there is Tiger Global, so on and so forth, SoftBank. A lot of these VCs who are putting in money. So when it comes to VCs, the kind of investment that they make can range anywhere between $1 million to about 25, 50, 100 kind of $1 million, and they do funding at various stages. So it starts with something called as a Series A funding, which is typically in the range of 1 to 5 or 10 million. And then there is a Series B funding, which is the next level of funding. Basically, VCs look at funding startups that are inherently scalable. So the only question they ask is, if I put in this money, are you going to grow from 1 to 10x or 5 to 50x? Is it possible using the capital that we give to grow faster? But then the onus or the responsibility is on the startup founder to have actually a good product which is being consumed by the users, end users, or customers. Only then VC is willing to put in their money. So VCs fund high growth startups, but not necessarily startups which are let's say like not the kind of businesses they don't fund restaurants or traditional businesses, but they fund mostly these high growth ventures. So VCs also have morphed, and a new kind of VC has emerged, which is called venture debt. Basically, venture debt is a new form wherein VCs are actually giving the money as a loan to the startups in exchange in exchange of certain terms and conditions, and it is expected to be returned back. So in this space, there is an interesting concept that evolved recently in the ecosystem by this I think VC called 100x.vc. So what they are doing is they're providing some $100,000 as a initial capital, and they're taking equity through a mechanism called like iSafe note. So basically, iSafe is called India Simple Agreement for Future Equity. So instead of actually having an equity, they are taking equity at a future date using some paperwork now. So there are some interesting developments happening in that space. But however, you need to keep in mind that you have to convince them as to the relevance of your idea in today's context, and ensure that the money that is given is utilized for high growth and acquisition of customers, or product development, which can eventually lead you to good product development. So nowadays VCs have also started virtual programs of like an accelerator program. So they have a small cohort of 10 startups, and they fund them with some nominal amount, like let's say 60 lakhs or 70 lakhs, and then they have mentors who are already successful startup founders. So Lightspeed Ventures has a program called Extreme Entrepreneurs, wherein there is let's say Lightspeed program. Yeah, so I think the Extreme Entrepreneurs program is a place where people like Ritesh Agarwal of OU and so on and so forth, they come in and they actually train the startups on how to scale without losing quality, and so on and so forth. Whoever are the portfolio ventures funded by the VC, they actually support them. So that is an interesting space. Accel Partners has come up with a program called Founder Stack. Basically, it is for SaaS-based startups. How do you grow from $1 million ARR, which is the annual recurring revenue, and to maybe $10 million ARR? So they've built certain guidelines and all, which is delivered through an accelerator program, which is run by a VC. So that's an interesting space which is shaping up very well. Nowadays, VCs so today the current situation is VCs are not necessarily funding new startups. They've paused the funding given to some of the old startups. So they're just like waiting and watching to, before investing money into a particular startup. But then there is opportunity if it is in the right sector, like say edtech or health tech or fintech or gaming. There are all of these sectors which are constantly evolving. So if there is money there, it can be, VCs are actually interested to put in their money. So if you can see this whole, there was this app called Chingari, which was a kind of a replacement to TikTok. So a lot of money actually went into that app. So people are looking at various possibilities and models, which I will discuss in the later part of the presentation. And the last two ecosystem players that you could leverage are the government. The government is an important supporter of the startup ecosystem. They have various schemes under Startup India. Then there's Niti Aayog has a scheme called Atal Innovation Mission, which is supporting incubators and entrepreneurs So basically, government is also running a lot of these hackathons and challenges where if you with an interesting idea, you are able to kind of scale it, you get some grant and get some visibility and adoption for the product. So I think watching out the government space in today's time also could be an interesting area. And of course, then there is the tech ecosystem, which you need to keep in mind. If you are a software startup, then Facebook, Google, and Amazon have something called as these developer circles. So I think you can look at some of that, and I think apart from the developer circles, you can just look at yeah. Sorry. Can you just give me a minute? I'll just have a glass of water and I'll just government. Yeah. So I was just speaking about the tech ecosystem. So there is you can leverage these developer circles where you can actually code and build certain interesting products. In fact, Geo has come up with Geo also has come up with something called as developer circles, wherein you can build a lot of apps for the Geo ecosystem. And aside of that, there are a lot of these tech and maker spaces that you can leverage. So now coming to some of the key trends that have happened in the last 3-4 months, which we could keep in mind. The first thing is in health tech. We've seen that there is, let's say, so there's a lot of opportunity in telemedicine and health tech in all of that, so which is a space that has evolved recently. Then there's a lot of emphasis being given to wellness startups. So now that people are in a work from home scenario, how do you really enable them to be healthy and happy and so on and so forth. So basically, when I use the term demand diversion, so the demand which was there prior to the lockdown or prior to COVID still exists, but it is being consumed in a different format. So looking at opportunities where the previous demand is now being converted into a new format, that's an opportunity which has become really, really hot or interesting. And there is the tech space, which is coming out to be really, really promising, because in recent times, Udemy, Vedantu, and Byju's and an academy, they've all raised insane amounts of money, because now the focus is on how education is delivered virtually, not only in terms of, like, say, video conferencing or content, but in terms of the style of delivery. How can you pick up new skills, and all of that? So there's a lot of opportunity around this. So what has happened is a lot of the jobs which are lost in various other startups are now getting created in these sectors which where demand has actually grown. So retail consumption through e-commerce, that also has kind of increased drastically. And there are opportunities for startups in the remote working area. Apart from those video conferencing tools, how do we really ensure that we enable? So earlier people used to work in an offline environment. How do you make them more comfortable? It does not mean just having some tools for online collaboration, but how do you really create that environment in an online world for the old activities to happen? So this is an interesting trend that has occurred in recent times. Then we have this concept of pivot, which has happened very, very drastically. So let us say an example of a startup that I can give you. There was a startup called Fabric Monday. So they used to be a B2B startup procuring textiles from various, textile mills across the country and sourcing it to big brands for their production. That was their concept before the COVID kind of scenario. But I think soon after that, what happened was this COVID situation occurred, and they had to find a way to reinvent their business model. So what they did was they were already in touch with a lot of these garment manufacturers and all of that, and their facilities were getting unutilized. So they actually pivoted their model to manufacturing masks and PPE kits. So using the same facilities that were already part of their earlier business. They've changed it into a model which is more consumable now. So because of that, they not only survived but actually were able to generate a lots of revenue, maybe running into, I don't know, a few crores also. But the point being that it's really interesting how they made that pivot. So that is an example of a smaller startup which kind of pivoted during these times. But the biggest pivot would have been that of Reliance. When they are traditionally they were in the oil business, and now if you see, they're completely diversified into the tech business. So Reliance is now talking about Geo and building that whole digital ecosystem. They raised $20 billion in these times, and now they're now looking to create their own set of apps and whatnot. So that kind of pivot has not only happened to big corporates, but the small businesses. So I think the term even Swiggy has now resorted to delivery of groceries. So you need to keep in mind that for survival, this is an important trend that is occurring, where you are revisiting your existing business model in order to survive. So this could be an interesting trend that has happened as a result of change in ecosystem. Then we have the sectors. I think I would like to quickly bring out these few sectors, and we can have a discussion later on as to how you can really tap into these sectors or whatever questions you may have. So I think some of the sectors are health tech, fintech, ed tech, gaming, AR, VR, and so on and so forth. Like there are a lot of other interesting sectors which have shaped up or evolved during these times. And the whole concept of Atmanirbhar or self-reliance, that has become really, really a big wave today in India, where people are talking about Indian apps building for the world. Now that you have, the globe is one market because everything is virtual and you do not see physical distances. Being self-reliant, how do you build for your own economy as well as build for the world? That's actually become a big trend. So having that make in India kind of an approach towards your idea or startup and how that can be made for the world, those are places where startups are seeing interesting collaborations and all of that. So now coming to new business models, I think this is a great time for you to evolve, because I believe most of you are early stage startups. The good part is you are not already operating at a very scaled level where a lot of resources were invested, and therefore survival was a question. So most startups before the COVID scenario had only 3 to 6 months of runway in terms of the funds that they had and the salaries that they could pay, because they were not going to get any business during this time. So they had to manage the existing resources. As a result of that, like a lot of startups have shut down, and that is a challenge that you do not face today. You have the opportunity to look at new business models. So we were talking to some startups in the robotic space. So they were complaining that our startup is a robotic startup. It's a robotic startup. It's a hardware startup. How are we going to find customers when they're not able to see the demo and all of that? So what they did was they looked at other solutions in terms of how to make it like IoT enabled, how to have some sort of a cloud integration, AI integration, and other integrations which will actually enable these products to work virtually. And therefore they resorted to the concepts of virtual demos and all of that, and that actually resulted in sales. So I think there is a real opportunity for you to look at newer business models which fit today's trends, and also you can keep in mind that the COVID scenario can be there for the next 6 months, 1 year or 2 years. But also, if it is not there, how is the evolution? How has the customer mindset changed as a result of that? Will people go back to the earlier days and the way they were consuming? These are questions that you need to ask and look at kind of new business models. So that's an interesting space that is evolved, and this has presented a very very interesting opportunity for startups, which is called the talent. You know that there are a lot of job cuts happening these days, and a lot of senior talent is now looking at an opportunity wherein they can really work with startups, or they also had their aspirations of starting up on their own, but never really had the time or the opportunity. But now such senior talent is actually willing to work with startups on an equity basis, or some sort of even on on an advisory capacity basis. So it's actually a great time where a lot of talented people are now looking at opportunities to find work, either in terms of design or coders. They're looking at internships. Other students are very keen, very seriously looking out for internships, so that maybe those kind of internships can convert into job opportunities eventually. So I think that there's a lot of interesting exchanges that are happening, and you can keep your mind open in terms of such opportunities. And then the other key aspect is, in this scenario where if you're not able to raise funding, how do you really scale or build your business? I think partnerships is a key model that is being adopted by startups, wherein they're co-partnering with other startups or organizations or institutions or corporates, and building or developing their product or taking it to the market. For example, a lot of open innovation programs by various corporates is a good area for you to get into some of their programs. AB InBev, Future Group, they all have these open innovation programs. They are willing to work with startups, either to help them develop their product, or to test out their product, or to take it to the market by introducing potential customers. So this is an interesting area that you can kind of keep in mind as you go along. And finally, I would like to talk about a few resources that you could leverage as a potential startup founder or a startup founder. So the first thing is some of the books that you could read. I think this is a great time for you to really catch up on some of the books and literature that was available in order for you to speed up your thinking. So there are 3 books that I personally felt defined the way I think. The first book is called Think Big. So this book talks about Think Big is by an author called Bill Zanker, and also co-authored by Donald Trump. It's a kind of an interesting thing, but wherein he mentions in the book that he was going to be the president of USA, and he says this maybe 10-15 years before he actually became a president. But I think the broader theme of the book it's trying to emphasize is how do you have a real big vision when it comes to your product, your service, your startup, or yourself, and how that actually translates into a big opportunity eventually. So Think Big is a good book for you to have a big picture thinking. Then the next book that I would recommend is something called as The 50th Law. The 50th Law talks about 50th Law is by an author called Robert Greene. It talks about the entrepreneurial mindset. How can you be realistic? How can you turn problems into opportunities? How do you keep moving further? How can you keep hustling and keep moving forward as you go along? So that's a very good, very interesting book on entrepreneurial mindset. And the third book is that I would recommend is called as Essentialism. Essentialism talks about a concept of doing very few things, but the things that matter. Because as students, as employees, as founders, we find ourselves doing 100 different things, being in different places, inundated with a lot of conversations and work tasks. How do you really focus on the 2 or 3 things that matter? So this book actually gives you those tools and frameworks to kind of sharpen your focus and maybe focus on the things that really matter. I think a lot of interesting content has come up around entrepreneurs on Netflix, Hotstar, and various of these OTT or video streaming platforms, where there are a lot of interesting documentaries of successful entrepreneurs that you can watch. There's of course Shark Tank, which will in a very simple way and help you understand investors' perspective. And there are a lot of other series that you can pick up to understand different concepts. Suits talks about negotiation skills and so on and so forth. So that's another interesting space. Netflix also has these 30 minute bite-sized series like something called as History 101 and all of that. In 20 minutes you understand a big concept. So there's something called as The Great Hack, which talks about big data in about an hour or 2. So this is a time for you to absorb a lot of content in a short period of time. So the third aspect is, how do you really keep yourself plugged into the ecosystem? How do you know who's getting funded, or how do you know what are the kind of interesting products that are coming up? How do you leverage the ecosystem? I think it's really important for you to be plugged in to understand what's happening around you, either in terms of different sectors. So Inc42 is a great source for you to pick up your daily news when it comes to startups. So what I do is I just subscribe to their daily, daily mailing list, and I get updates on a daily basis. in terms of what's happening in the startup ecosystem. Then there is Economic Times also has a daily brief on the tech ecosystem or the startup ecosystem. Then there's Your Story, which is fine. I think it's okay for you to read up stories on startups and other aspects. But TechCrunch gives you a global perspective. TechCrunch looks at the startup ecosystem not only in the US, in Silicon Valley, but in UK and various other places. So you follow the trends and you understand what exactly is going on in the other parts of the world. So all of these outlets have a subscriber or a mailing list that you can be part of, and on an everyday basis you can stay connected with the startup ecosystem. And of course, the final aspect that I would like to emphasize on is incubators, accelerators, angels, VCs, mentors, all of the kind of resources that I had mentioned earlier. They are constantly kind of supporting startups through various formats. So it becomes, a good opportunity for you to leverage these various stakeholders. And now, just I want to finish with maybe a diagram on how startups were getting launched in 2019 and how startups are getting launched in 2020. So I think it is still happening, but the format has changed. So along with that, new opportunities have arisen. So yeah, these are also actually great times for startups because big companies are actually struggling for survival of business models, whereas startups are going to be the front runners in terms of coming up with new ideas, generating employment. So we are in great times, I would say, and the startup ecosystem has a lot to offer. And I would be more than happy to kind of keep in touch with all of you, and we can always I think after this presentation, we can quickly have a conversation or some space for Q&A. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. I think that was a quick summary of what exists for people and the various opportunities for taking the benefit of the ecosystem. So I would like to open it up for questions. Anybody who would like to start? Okay. So while people are framing up their questions, I have one question for you, Akash.
Okay.
So
okay.
Most of what we see in ecosystems, including Nirman and including most of ecosystems, it is mainly on the input side to the entrepreneurs, where they get them funding, they get them mentorship, they get them what do you call as so acceleration and all of that, education and all of that. But are there any specific bodies or teams that help them connect with customers? Like, for example, if you say EdTech, or if you say Clean Tech, or if you say FinTech, are there certain organizations, or are there specific accelerators that specifically expose these startups to their customers and to help them accelerate that aspect of their business?
Yes. Thanks, Professor Satya. I think that's a great question. I think that's where a lot of these accelerators come into the picture. So most of the accelerators are very sector specific. So, for example, fintech startups are usually supported by banks. So, for example, let us say HDFC has as a fintech accelerator. Then there is Axis Bank, which also has a fintech accelerator, which is startups in the financial technology. So what they do is they provide access to customers within that particular segment. Then there is something called as AB InBev. I mean, it's an unrelated note, but AB InBev manufactures alcoholic beverages and all of that, and they have brands like Budweiser and all. So what they do is they're looking at startups which are solving problems for their core business. So they don't necessarily have to be let us say manufacture or produce alcohol, but address certain problems in their supply chain or in their marketing campaigns or whatever. So they are looking at giving an opportunity for the startups to test out their solutions within their own program. So that is one space. NetApp is another accelerator which looks at startups in the cloud or storage space. So they introduce them to customers. Microsoft has another program. So similarly, for social enterprises, Social Alpha has a program. I think every accelerator in some sense gives access to customers within that segment, customers and mentors from that particular organization. Also, there are these mentoring networks that you could leverage. Like TIE is a good network which kind of gives you access to a lot of different stakeholders. So TIE, then there is Head Start, and a lot of these early networks which kind of are really helpful for entrepreneurs in helping them get connected.
Thank you, Akash.
And I think we have a couple of questions. So let us. So the next question is by Amit Kumar, who asks, what things or values in a startup angel investors are expecting from startup to be eligible to get funded? So to maybe rephrase your question, what I understand is, what are angel investors looking for in a startup? So I think few things. One is they look at the founding team. Who are the people behind the startup? Who are, let's say, who are the people behind the startup? Whether they are actually capable of, executing this idea, because they are going to put in their money, and they want to be sure that if I put my money, are these people credible and can they execute? Do they have the required skill sets? I think that is something that angel investors look for. And apart from that, angel investors usually fund through networks and referrals. Mostly the investor ecosystem is done through referrals. So if, for example, a person or an angel investor or someone who's connected to the angel investor, if they can actually put in a recommendation or a reference for you, things are likely to work better. And also, I think the broader concept that angel investors would also look for is, if I put in my money, at what point do I exit? So if I put, like, say, 1 crore into your startup, then is this startup fundable such that, maybe if a VC comes in with a 10 crores kind of funding, I can get maybe 2 times of my valuation and exit. So these are certain things that they look at, perhaps, and whether there's a potential and whether there's a real business that is there. So I think that's a brief answer that I would give.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we had a wonderful session today. We're almost out of time.
Yes.
So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Akash for joining us today. We would be posting this up as a YouTube link and also a Medium article, which we will share once it's up and running. That you could also share it on your social media platform and give us a little bit more publicity from your platform.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Akash, and look forward to working with you through your Startupreneur program. And once again, all the best with your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Professor Satya. And I really look forward to working with Nirman. Yeah. And I hope you all enjoyed this session. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.